Let's face it, there aren't many festive holiday video games to play during winter, so I've decided to start evaluating sections of video games featuring traditional festive or winter themes. By following my strict criteria, I'll be deciding whether these levels, worlds, and sections can be considered adequate enough to justify the game as a satisfying winter experience. Red Dead Redemption 2 is considered to be one of the best games of whatever year it came out in. But on today's video, we're not going to judge it based on its traditional qualities. Instead, we'll subject the game to our winter criteria list to decide once and for all if Red Dead Redemption 2 is a winter video game.
Stars and Stripes!
Hello and welcome to another Carrot Scraps video, and by another, I mean the 40th. So this is going to be the first in a series of videos where I evaluate video games based on their winterness. Based on the amount of winter they provide. Now, before we jump into RDR2, let's quickly talk about my criteria. I've decided that any winter game has to meet one or all of these 4 qualifications. The first qualification, and arguably the most important one, is snow. Most, if not all games I'll consider a winter game has to have at least some snow in it, or else I'm not even going to make a video about it. I feel like that's kind of obvious. But depending on the incorporation of the snow and the amount of snow in the game will determine how much this qualification factors into the final grade. The second qualification is family. Now, this doesn't need to be family by blood, it just needs to be a game that somehow emphasizes the wholesome nature of family interactions. The third qualification is festivity. Doesn't matter how, as long as there's some kind of celebration or festivity, it meets this qualification. This can range from any kind of decoration to somebody shouting yoo-hoo or wahoo or yahoo. Any variation of that phrase. Yippee is also it also counts. And the fourth and final qualification is food. As long as there's food in your game as well as snow, you're doing something right towards making it a good winter game. And that's it. Those are the 4 qualifications from my judgment of what makes a good winter game. Keep in mind, a good winter game doesn't need to meet these criteria throughout the entire game, just as long as it lasts a level, a world, or a sequence. Alright, without any further ado, let's get into Red Dead Redemption 2. So I'm sure when it comes to me mentioning Red Dead Redemption as a winter game, it's left a lot of you scratching your heads. Well, there actually is a pretty significant and lengthy winter section of Red Dead Redemption 2. Conveniently, the winter section of the game occurs at the start of the game, and it's actually a pretty lengthy segment. This sequence serves as an introduction to the protagonist, Arthur. We learn a little bit about who he is and the people he travels with. We also learn about the people that wish Arthur no good. Arthur and the group he travels with are somewhat trying to start a new life. Debatably not by choice. Either because of their past actions or because the world is changing, they're being forced to go to a different part of the United States that their group is not necessarily accustomed to. This proves to be a difficult transition for them throughout the rest of the game, but this is the start of that journey. And this difficult new beginning is punctuated by a rather large snowstorm, which leads us into the first of our 4 criteria. Now, as for our first qualification, snow, I gotta say, we're starting really strong in this series, because it's absolutely a winter wonderland in Red Dead Redemption 2. It's a snowy tundra at the start of this game, and I couldn't be more excited. Now, to be fair, it seems like a lot of these characters are suffering because of the harsh weather and cold, but it looks beautiful. We also get a stunning range of snowy atmosphere. Sometimes the storm is so bad that Arthur can't even see 2 inches from his face. Other times, the area is completely still, with only the moon hanging in the sky lighting the clouds around you. We then get the early morning light with rays of the sun touching the snow. And lastly, we even get to see a lot of this snow melt as the seasons begin to change. So, like, all jokes aside, I mean, this opening is really beautiful, and it is kind of cool to experience the snow and winter in so many different facets. There's a lot of different tones at the start of the game, and even though we're mostly in the same location, having the snow change so drastically helps make these different scenes very distinct. But that does segue into our next point about Red Dead Redemption 2. There sure is a lot of violence in this game. Yeah, like that. That was a lot. That was very violent. And I don't know about you, but when it comes to like winter, I'm just not exposed to this kind of like raw violence. Yeah, see all that, like, it's, I feel like this was a very confusing addition for Rockstar to add to their game. I mean, if they were trying to make a good winter game, they should have made it a lot less bloody, like, significantly less, like, blood and gore and bullets. I mean, there are gunfights, there are bear fights, there are swear words, there are bear words. I'll admit, there's some unfestive activity going on at the start of this game. But you know what? Even though there's a lot of tension at the start of the game, there actually is a really good semblance of family on display. Now, most of the characters in Arthur's squad aren't related, but they really sell you on this found family. Everybody is very unique, and they all seem like they're from different backgrounds. And sure, conflict arises between them all, but at the end of the day, they are all connected. They all seem like they have a bottom line respect for each other, and if not that, at the very least a respect for their leader, Dutch. In all honesty, the point of the start of this game is not just to introduce you to Arthur, I think it's also to introduce you to the bond that this group has with each other. This group of misfits really has each other's backs, and it doesn't matter if you're weak, or if you're poor, or if you're crazy. These people are together, and they're going to stick together and keep each other safe. Again, on a serious note, even the subject of racial discrimination is touched on lightly, and it really drives home this found family, that it doesn't matter how different these people are, that they're brought together through something else. Desperation, respect, or adversity, it doesn't matter, they're all together now, and they're gonna look out for each other. And you know what? That perfectly embodies our criteria number 2, our second list, family. The start of Red Dead Redemption 2, while not family friendly, is very focused on family connections. And you know what? When I think of winter, I think, oh, there's a bug. Call the police. I found a bug. Call the police. Call the police. Make a phone call. Doesn't matter. Call them at any number. There's a bug in this game. Get it out. Get this game out. Bug police, get it. I briefly touched on the topic of the violence featured in this game. Yes, exactly, that violence. And I discussed how I thought it was very unfestive. Well, we're at the third criteria on our winter video games list, and that is festivity. Now, I will give the game that there seems to be some merriment involved with the start of the game. Like, characters seem like they're celebrating when people aren't dead, or like they're happy that they're not dead. There's like this common celebration that nobody has died because of the snow. And while I do acknowledge that minor festivity and merriment, I'm sorry, I can't give festivity to Red Dead Redemption 2. There just isn't enough merriment in this section for me to consider the game very festive. And maybe I would feel a little bit differently if there was less murder in the game.
If you can shoot a gun and ride a horse and kill without thought, you're in.
But as it stands, Red Dead Redemption 2 is not a very festive game at the start. But that brings us to the final point on our winter criteria list of winter games. And that final point is, is that a fart cloud? Ugh, why is it doing, it's just this big, like, green, yellow cloud here. Oh man, ugh, that's yucky. I just don't understand. It's like a cowboy themed game. It's like a Western. I don't know what's very Westerny about this. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Anyway, now that I have that bad taste in my mouth, let's move on to the final criteria, which is food. Now, on the surface, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of food in the opening of Red Dead Redemption 2. There's no big feast or big elaborate dinner, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that these characters are struggling to survive, and they're also significantly poor, from what I can tell. They're hanging on by a thread, and they just really can't do the big feast thing. But if you put on your analytical goggles like I did, then you'll see that there is a core of food in the opening of Red Dead Redemption 2. You see, in the opening of the game, there's actually a sequence where Arthur and Charles are tasked with hunting a deer to bring back for a big meal. In this time, not only does Arthur learn the basics of hunting from Charles, but they also gather food for their found family. This scene is very calm and very still and honestly very sweet as Arthur and Charles begin to bond with each other. Arthur learns more about Charles, somebody who he likes but hasn't really spent much time with as of late. And Charles learns more about Arthur, someone with a rich past who really does consider this group his family. I really like seeing these two bond, and honestly, this is another checkmark in the family category. Seeing them getting along really gets across that wholesome winter vibe. Now, there may be a lot of dead people in the beginning of Red Dead Redemption 2, but at the end of the day, I think this scene really exemplifies why the opening of Red Dead Redemption 2 can definitely be considered a winter game.
I've got you. Now stop yelling.
A lot of pros and cons. Alright, fine. You're lucky. Putting all jokes aside for a second, I'm not very far into Red Dead Redemption 2, but I can say that I'm really enjoying it. I think my personal preference would like more engaging gameplay over the compelling story that's provided. I really do love the story of the game so far. I just don't think as much thought was put into making the gameplay fun. That being said, the gameplay isn't bad. I think I still prefer the open world of GTA 5, but this new landscape is really fun and interesting to explore, somewhat different enough to still keep my attention. The gunplay is fairly simple, and it's really fun to explore the environments. As for the opening of the game, it's a really good tutorial sequence, honestly. It teaches you how to play the game while distracting you with story beats and character setups. Although playing this opening sequence a second time, I kind of realized how often I was just walking around listening to someone. That's what I mean by the developers prioritizing story and character over gameplay. For some that might be okay, but I always want to make sure that a game is at least fun to play or interesting to play before I dive into the story itself. But luckily, while Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't better than GTA 5 from what I've seen so far, it's still built on a really great foundation. Anyway, I just wanted to give my quick thoughts on the game so far. Maybe I'll do a review of this game in the future, but today I wanted to focus on whether this was a good winter game or not. Do you think that Red Dead Redemption 2 has what it takes to be considered a winter game? Should we be playing the beginning of Red Dead Redemption 2 every winter to celebrate? I'd love to know how you feel about my verdict in the comments below. I want to thank you so much for watching. If for some reason you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and to subscribe to my channel for more. I'm always live on Twitch, and during the month of December, I've been doing the Carrotscraps Winter Games, where I basically just play any games that have any amount of snow in them. At the end of the day, I guess that's the most important of the four criteria. But if that sounds interesting to you at all, check me out on Twitch at carrotscraps. I'm also at carrotscraps on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. I want to thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Arthur Morgan is the... Oh, wait, let's try to get it. Okay. Arthur Morgan is the winter cowboy. Arthur Morgan delivers the toys. Arthur Morgan also carries a gun, but it's for fun and to protect the people. Arthur Morgan has a bow and arrow. Him and Charles like to hunt the deer. You may think that his persuasion's narrow, but his heart is open during this time of year. Alright, that was the best one I've done so far. He's the Arthur Morgan, snow is falling on the ground and there's a gun, and a bear attacked me, and I robbed a train, oh my goodness, la 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 la. Okay, Arthur Morgan. Okay, that's it, I'm done. I've been trying that for a while to come up with a good song.